Okay, so I'm going to do this as an update for my cholinergic urticaria. I have been doing a lot more updates back in the day about this versus now. And the reason why I did more back in the day was because a lot of people didn't know what cholinergic urticaria was or what CU is. And so I did those videos because I found out and discovered what the name was versus just I'm itching when I get hot. But B, there were a lot of people, when I saw online, there were a lot of people who were just baffled that other people suffered the same thing. Early on, I'm talking like when I was 17, 18, dermatologists didn't really even know what I had. They said it was some sort of dermatitis. They didn't really give much information. They told me to buy all this expensive soap and lotions from Cetaphil and do all of that, which does nothing. No doubt, it definitely gets you a lot cleaner, maybe, but it does nothing to stop it. Cholinergic urticaria is more of an internal thing too, and it's also external. So it's one of those things that's kind of hard to treat because it affects you internally and externally. So you have to be very careful. One of the big things is the lack of sweating. So for me, I can sweat on my forehead. Like if it's really hot, I can sweat here and on the top of my head, but I can't sweat from the neck down to like my back. All the way to like all of my back, my chest, none of that will sweat. And so it seems like that is the problem area. So then I start to itch profusely. I would guess the best way to describe the itch is if you were to wash your clothes and let the soap get in there really, really good. Take it out of the soapy water, dry the clothes, and then put it on, and then walk around, and that itch gets to you everywhere. I guess that's probably the best way to maybe describe it. I would describe it when it gets really bad as having a bunch of mosquito bites all over your back. So imagine having 50 or 60 mosquito bites on your back and chest, itching all at the same time. That's pretty much kind of how CU is for me when I get too hot. Some people have it when they're too cold, where basically if they get too cold, they instantly get these big bubbles all over their face or wherever, and they start to itch, right? Some people have both, where they're affected by the cold and the heat equally. So if it's a hot day and they go outside in the sun, or it could be under the shade, if it's really humid, they will start itching like crazy. And likewise, if it's really, really cold, it's the same thing. For me, I only have the heat issue, thankfully. My sister has the cold issue. So in the heat, she can do fine. It doesn't bother her. It's just the cold. For my girls, Zara has it both. She has it where if she gets too hot or too cold, it affects her. But it's very mild. Very, very mild. And it's not as bad. Zoe has it pretty bad in the. Hold on one second. Let me check to make sure. Okay, I had to check with Noelle. Zoe has it where it's both as well, and it's pretty severe. Zoe has this on a daily basis where I don't know if you've kind of seen some of her hands, but her hands has a large amount of just dry, flaky skin because of eczema. So she suffers through that, and we can treat it and get it knocked out. But stress and things like that, hot foods, spicy foods, anything like that can really set you over the edge. And also, if it's very dry, hot, humid, that type of thing, it really affects that. So it comes and goes with her in terms of just what's on her skin. It can be as smooth as mine, or it can start being patchy. It just comes and goes. It affects her neck. It affects her the back of her neck, her lip sometimes, the folds of her arms, the folds of her legs. It really, you could see it, right? It's really bad in the summer months, especially if kids go outside and they want to play, and that's what does it. So she'll be fine for the first 30 minutes, and then later it's like she's just having an attack. She also has asthma, so that all those things kind of scientists or doctors believe play hand in hand. So then she'll come in, but at that point it's too late because basically the flare-ups are going to happen, right? They may not be shown at that point, but the next few hours it's going to show up and it stays there. Mine is kind of a rapid climb and then a rapid decrease. So if I get really hot, there's no visible signs that you're going to see. You may see my skin turn kind of red, and you may see a few raised bumps here and there. But then as soon as I cool down, that like disappears. It's the weirdest thing. Also, my skin will produce little pebbles. I don't know how to. It's like little granules, like little tiny salt granules, but they're not salt. And that's mainly on my back. That will usually comes from like either just my pores or just one of those raised bumps, and they look like the beginning of a pimple, I guess. They're not, so you have to kind of notice them. They're not crazy, but they're very sensitive. If you touch them, it's going to make me itch. And so it takes a day or two for those to go away, and once they're gone, they're gone. But it's not like I'm constantly itching at that spot. My itching is very quick, right? The only time that I haven't had an issue, I shouldn't say the only time, but when I went to Haiti, it was so hot that it forced my skin to sweat. And one of the things with CU is that your body just doesn't sweat in the areas that are affected. It was so hot, so quick, that you're gonna sweat. You know, if I go into a sauna, it's so hot that you're going to sweat. And so the CU doesn't impact me. I may feel a quick sting all over, and then it's gone within like 2 seconds because it's just so hot. But it has to be the right heat. It has to really make me sweat, force my body to sweat. Right now in Tacoma, it's like 83, 84. It's pretty hot for us here. If I go outside, I'm just going to itch. It's not hot enough. Believe it or not, it's very humid, hot and humid. It really bothers me. The other time was when I was in Indiana, and Noelle had something that she was doing, and I went out to this festival to find her, and I wasn't itching, and I relished that. I walked all over the place, everywhere I could, and just sweating, all on my back. The key is if you're able to sweat. You have to sweat. If you sweat, you're not going to itch, at least in my case. The CU doesn't affect me if I start to sweat. It's when I'm not able to sweat. Now, here's the problem that I discovered last year. Last year, I was working on the fence, I believe, and doing some yard work. And I have CU, and I'm like, I'm not itching. But I'm also not sweating. So that's the key. If I'm not itching, but I'm sweating, that's fine. If I'm not itching and it's hot and I'm not sweating, that's a concern because now you're dealing with heat exhaustion. So all of a sudden, my vision became kind of like someone had plastic over my eyes a little bit. I felt very dizzy, like the world was just spinning. And Noelle was saying, "Are you okay?" Because I was breathing pretty loud and I didn't realize it. It kind of felt like I was, but she could hear it. And that was because I was really overheating. You can get very hot very quick with CU if you're not paying attention because you're not sweating. That's what makes it so scary, right? Some folks have asked if I've been cured of it or anything that I know that can solve it. And my thing is just basically you have to live your life around it, right? You have to adjust to it. Some folks will say, well, I've eaten certain things and that's helped. Maybe. Some folks have said I've exercised to force myself to sweat. Maybe, but again, be cautious or be careful because if that doesn't make you sweat, you could be working yourself into a problem, right? I'm not a doctor, so I don't know. I would say definitely go to your doctor to see what's best for you. I do have to add a caveat. When I went to Haiti, I was under a lot of different antihistamines. A lot. And so I took those and a sun blocker and everything else. It was all internal. And that may have helped quite a bit. I do know that when I came back to the U.S., for a few days, I was good. I didn't itch. but then it came right back. So um, that could have helped. That could have helped. I will say an update is one of the things I really like are these sunflower seeds. And obviously, if you take in salt, a lot of salt, sodium, it's not good for you. I mean, duh. But it also helps dehydrate you. So you have to make sure that you drink plenty of liquids. Even in the summertime, you want to make sure you drink plenty of liquids. But what I did notice was one day, I think it was the other day, in the house, because we don't have air conditioning typically in a lot of places in Seattle and Tacoma. Most homes don't have it. Some are getting it more and more, but a lot of homes don't have air conditioning. It typically is not super hot here. And when it does get warm like it is today, it's only for like a day, and then it goes back down to, the mid 70s or so. But you can just have fans and windows open and you're good. But I was basically unwrapping the dishwasher, taking it out of the box and doing all of that. Nothing strenuous. And I started to itch like you would not believe. Like it was bad. And it was like a blanket on one side, just itching like all over here. And then it started to go on this side. Then my legs start to itch. It was really, 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 really bad. So I went upstairs. Had I not had a portable air conditioner, I don't know what I would have done. Probably would have jumped in the bathtub and, basically had water come down on me. But I literally went upstairs in the air conditioning and just sat there. It took probably 5 minutes of cold air blowing directly on my back to just ease the symptoms a little bit. During that time I was just moving around, and it's an anxiety-filled thing. But what led to it, I believe, is this, eating a lot of sunflower seeds, the lack of the appropriate amount of water to help with that, and the fact that it was hot and humid. It was hot and humid a couple of days ago. So one of the things that I think folks should understand that have CU is definitely when it's the hot time of the year. Now, some of the folks that live in Florida and other places that's hot all the time or warm all the time, you probably have to limit your salt intake generally, right? Again, too much salt's not good for you anyhow. But those who live in other places that have all the seasons, when it's hot and humid, definitely lower your sodium intake quite a bit, drastically, and that will help. Since then, I've laid off of the seeds, and even though it's hot right now, right now, it's as hot as it was when I was working on the dishwasher, and I'm not having that same issue. Now, there's a sting here, for example, right now. There's a tiny sting on my back, but it just went away. So it's like a half a second, you get a sting, and it's gone. You won't even itch. So that's because even though I still need more water and things like that, I laid off of the salt quite a bit to kind of balance everything out. Been drinking more and more water. I still need more, but drinking more and more water, so I'm not as affected by it. So one tip I will say is lower your sodium and increase the amount of water that you drink. Now, I'm not saying sit here and overdrink water, because that's a problem, but definitely hydrate yourself quite a bit, because believe it or not, you are sweating, but just not in the areas that you need it. Like when it's warm and humid, you're sweating a little bit on your head, or for me, I should say, I'm sweating a little bit on my head a little bit. Well, that's depleting your water. Also, you go to the bathroom, different things. So I would say for me, make sure during the hot, humid months, you avoid things like alcohol as much, because that's going to do the same thing, dehydrate you. Avoid a lot of sodium, because that's going to dehydrate you. And make sure you're drinking plenty of water and eating a lot of fruits and things like that to help, keep the water in you, because otherwise your CU is going to act up pretty bad. And you can't do anything. And trust me, it wasn't like I was outside in the sun and the heat. I was inside with the windows up and the fans blowing on me, and still it was like I ran a marathon and just itching. So that would be pretty much my update. There's not a quick fix. There are people who are looking. Trust me, I've dealt with this I'm 42 now. I've been dealing with this for 30 years, to be honest with you. Now, there were some people that say after you get a certain age, it should go away. That hasn't been my case. There's some people that will say as you get older, it gets less and less. That hasn't been the case for me. I've been able to manage it a lot better. But I've been dealing with it for 30 years, and I can tell you that there are certain things you can do. And I try to tell Zoe. Zoe freaks out, and of course, she's a kid. I didn't deal with it that young. But I tell her, like, this is what you need to do. You have to calm down. Don't freak out so much. I know it's scary, but don't freak out because you're just going to amp it up. That's the other thing. What's weird about this is that when you're hot like that and you get all these things, you want to run to where it's cool, or you get stressed out. And the problem is, as you get more stressed out, the more of an itching sensation you're going to have. It's a weird thing, right? And the longer it's going to be to recover. Whereas if you calm down, take a lot of deep breaths, and try to just work through it, try to cool yourself down slowly, then you're good. But anyhow, that's where we are in terms of my CU. It's still something that I deal with. People leave all types of comments about what I should maybe try. I do definitely take a look into those things as well, because I think it's very hopeful. Me, I'm more or less of the mindset that it's going to be with me forever. And I'm okay with that. I mean, it's better to have this than certain things other people have to deal with. This is just a lifestyle change. And so I'm not really that worried about it like I used to be. It's not the end of the world if you do have CU. It's something that you work through and deal with. You can still have a pretty normal life. If you're someone who's super active, you have to adjust to that and do things differently. But other than that, it's not something to feel, like your life is over. It's not. So make sure you join our Discord, which we talk about a ton of different topics all the time. Myself, Noel, and our subscribers. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, I will see you. Take care.